beloved. I hung my bow in the clouds, and I let you call it weather. That is a confession, and I am making it right now while you listen. If you brace a little when someone says your name from another room, this is for you. If you have been reading every hard stretch of your life as a bill coming due, this is for you too. If the phone rings twice and cuts off, and the first thing that moves in you is, which thing has finally caught up? Stay with me. If you keep half a defense written for a charge nobody ever read out to you, stay. When something good lands in your hands, and you stand there waiting for the other half of it, the real half, the one with your name on it, that is the same thing wearing a calmer face. You are the one I'm talking to. You have been reading that sky wrong your whole life, and nobody ever corrected you. You look up after the rain, you think, pretty. You think the storm has finally spent itself. Then you go back inside and pick up whatever you were carrying before. I know that reflex. I have watched it work in you since you were small enough to hide behind a door. You would not say you are afraid of me. You would use gentler words, careful, serious. You would say you have a conscience that keeps you honest. There is truth in that. But there is a room in you where a file sits open. You have not seen what is written on the page. You move through your days with one ear turned toward the door of that room, in case somebody comes in to read it out. That is not carefulness. That is waiting to hear the charge. You have built an entire life around the waiting. You arrive early so you can read the faces before the faces read you. You reopen a short reply 4 times, hunting for the temperature in it. You apologize first, out of habit, for things nobody laid at your feet. An apology you offer costs less than one that gets pulled out of you. You learn that early. You have gotten so good at it that it no longer feels like fear. It feels like being prepared. It feels wise. The world has proved you right more than once, and you have the memories filed to show it. Then you brought all of it here, to me. That is the part I mean to speak to, not the habit. Where you aimed it, you took the instrument you built for rooms and faces and bad news, and you turned it up toward the sky. You have been running it on me ever since. Every quiet stretch reads as a pause before something. Every hard month reads as a message with a return address on it. You never ask whether I am angry. You assume the answer. Then you get to work managing it. You have managed me for years. I have watched you do it. You keep your requests small so they will not look greedy on the page. You thank me twice for the same thing, in case the first one did not land. You put the difficult sentence at the end of the prayer, quietly, the way you would slip a bill under a door. So here is what I will do with the time we have. I'm going to tell you what is actually hanging over your head, not what you were taught it means, what it is. And when I tell you, watch what it does to the years you spent bracing. There is one thing you will need to hold before we get there. It will not sit easy. So I will name it now instead of sliding it past you. The sky over your life is not empty. Something is up there. It has been up there since before your first breath. It will still be up there long after your last one. You were half right your whole life. Something is hanging over you. You have simply never been told which way it is turned. Let me stay with the file a while longer, because you have never looked at it straight on, and it runs more of your life than anything you could name out loud. Ask yourself what you think is written in it. You cannot answer. That is the strange part, and you have never noticed it. You have spent decades braced for a charge, and you could not tell me one line of it. Not one sentence. You do not picture a punishment. You never have, if you are honest about it. There's no scene in your head where something falls on you. There is only a voice, reading. That is what you are afraid of. Not the sentence, the reading of it. The moment where somebody with the right to speak finally says the thing out loud, in order, from the top, and you stand there and hear it, and know that every quiet suspicion you ever had about yourself was accurate the whole time. You want to be told. That is the thing under the thing. Some part of you is not waiting for a verdict so much as waiting for the relief of not having to wonder anymore. I know how that sounds. Sit with it anyway. It explains too much of you to leave alone. It explains why you push for the hard conversation before the other person is ready to have it. Why you would rather hear something cutting than hear nothing at all. Why a silence of 3 days in a friendship can hollow you out, while an argument, an actual one with actual words in it, lets you sleep that night. You are not built for suspense. You have never been built for it. You would take the worst news in the world over one more hour of not knowing. And so you go looking. You reread the message. You replay the room. You test people gently, sideways, with a small joke that is not really a joke, to see if the temperature has changed since the last time you checked. You are not being difficult. You are trying to get the reading over with. Now hear what that does when you point it at me. There is nothing to find, so you never stop looking. A person searching for a charge that does not exist searches forever, because nothing ever comes back to end the search. Every quiet day gets logged as inconclusive. Every hard day gets logged as proof you have not yet read right. You wake up and start again. The looking has been going for so long that it has stopped feeling like an activity. It feels like your personality. It feels like the shape of your mind. You have called it many things. Being self-aware, taking responsibility, knowing yourself, owning up fast. Some of those words are honest words, and there is real gold in a person who does not lie to himself about what he is. But that is not what has been running under your ribs at 4 a.m. What runs there is a search with no end written into it. There is no last page. That is not humility. That is a machine that was never given a way to stop. I want to be careful here, because you will take almost anything I say and turn it into one more thing you are doing wrong. Do not do that with this. I am not telling you the searching makes you guilty. I am telling you it has been aimed at an empty room. You could not have found that charge. Not because you searched badly, because there was no page. That is a hard thing to be given. It should feel like relief. It will not yet, and I know why. If there is no charge, then the whole architecture you built to survive the charge has nothing to hold up. And you have been holding that thing up so long that your hands have shaped themselves around it. Take it away too fast, and your hands will not know what to close on. So, we will go slowly. I have time. I have never rushed you, not one day of your life. But before the shape of it changes, look at what the waiting has already cost you. You have carried the bill for years without once adding it up. Here is the first line of that bill. You live everything twice, first in the rehearsal, then again when it lands for real. You think the rehearsal is protection. It is not. It has never saved you a single hour of the real thing. The hard conversation still lands the way it lands. The bad result still hits the same weight. All the rehearsing does is make you pay in advance, at full price, for a thing that may never show up at the door. And most of them never do. Go back and count. Count the disasters you have fully lived through in your mind, in detail, with dialogue, and then set that number beside the ones that actually came. The gap between those two numbers is years of your life, not hours. Years. That is what the waiting costs, and you have never asked for a receipt. Here is the second line. You have rounded yourself down, not all at once. In small trims over a long stretch, so gradual that you would swear nothing was ever taken. You stopped asking for the thing you actually wanted and asked for the smaller version instead, the one you were more likely to get, so that a refusal would not cost so much. You let your own good news out of your mouth carefully, half apologized for, in case wanting it out loud made you look like someone who thinks too well of himself. You made yourself easy. Easy people do not get charged with much. And you have called that humility. It is not humility. Humility knows exactly what it is worth and simply does not need to argue about it. What you have is something else. It is a man keeping his profile low in a place where he thinks a shot might come from. That is not a small thing to live inside. It is exhausting in a way you cannot even feel anymore because you have nothing to hold it up against. You have never lived a week the other way. Here is the third line, and this one is quieter, and it is the one that costs the most. You have stopped bringing me things, not the big things. Those you still bring because when it is bad enough you have nowhere else to go, and you come the way a man comes to a court he expects nothing kind from. It is the small ones that stopped. The thing that made you laugh in the car. The plain request you decided was too minor to be worth my attention. The gratitude you felt for 1 good hour and never said because you did not want to open an account you might be asked to balance later. You go quiet with me about the small things. That is what happens to a person who thinks he is being watched for a reason. He stops offering anything that could be used. I have missed those. I will say it plainly. There are whole days of your life I have watched you enjoy without a word of it turned toward me, not because you were rebellious, but because you did not think a good hour was allowed in here. You thought the small good was somehow beneath what a conversation with me is for. It is not. It never was. The small good is most of what a life is made of, and you have been eating it alone at the counter with your back to the room. So no, the fear has not made you worse. That is not what I am saying. It has made you narrower. There is a life you were built to live at full width, and you've been living it at the width of a hallway, moving sideways past furniture, taking care not to knock anything over. You do not need to fix that. Do not turn it into a plan. You could not fix it anyway, because the narrowness is not the problem. It is a symptom. It follows from one thing you believe about me that is not true, and it will keep following from that belief no matter how much you resolve to be braver. So we go to the belief itself, where it came from, how you got it, and why of everything in your life that one thing has never been checked. The belief is this. You think I am adding you up, not watching you. Adding. You believe there is a running total somewhere, your name at the top of the column. The number moves, and one day the column closes and the total gets read. That is the file. That is what you could never picture, because it was never a sentence, it was a number. And a number explains everything the charge could not. It explains why nothing you do ever settles anything. A good week does not close a total, it only moves it. It explains why you cannot rest inside a thing that went well. A win is not an ending in a column. It is one more line. It explains why praise makes you itch. Praise raises the bar you are measured against. And it explains the one you have never admitted to anybody, so I will say it for you. You are afraid of being given more. Every good thing that arrives with a weight attached in your accounting. More given means more owed. More owed means more exposed. So something opens in front of you, an offer, a person who wants to be close to you, a door that swings when you expected it to hold. Your first movement is not joy. It is a quick sum of what this will cost you later. You have felt that 100 times. You have never put it into words. Naming it sounds ungrateful, and you have worked hard not to look ungrateful. You are not ungrateful. You are running a total. Nobody enjoys a gift while doing arithmetic. That is why your prayers have gotten smaller over the years. You are managing the balance. You keep the asks modest so the columns stay short. You would rather be owed nothing than be given much. Owing nothing is the only safety your arithmetic allows, so you keep the door narrow. Feel your hands for a second, wherever they are. One of them is probably closed. Not tight, just closed. That is how a hand rests when it has learned not to be open in a room. Let that one open. Nothing has to be put into it. Let it lie there, palm up. Notice how strange it feels. That is what I have been talking to for years. A closed hand and a running total. So hold this, and I will not soften it. Softened, you would file it as encouragement and move on. There is no column. There never was one. Not a short column, not a kind one, and not one where I keep the numbers low because I am fond of you. No sheet with your name at the head of it. And I am not going to ask you to take that on my word. There is something you can go and look at. I know that is hard to take in. You built a life around a total that is not there. You said no to things because of it. You kept your voice down because of it. You measured out love, yours and mine, in careful amounts. All of it to keep the account inside a range you could survive. And the strangest part is that you would defend the column if I tried to take it. Some part of you would fight me for it. A column is frightening, but a column is fair. It means what happens to you has a reason, and the reason is you. Take it away, and the good you were given was not earned. It cannot be locked in. It cannot be defended. That is a wide open sky, and open sky frightens a man who has spent his life indoors. So I will not pull it out of your hands. I will show you something instead. The column can fall out on its own later, while your hands are busy holding what I give you. But first you have to see where you learned to count. You did not invent that habit. It was taught to you early. Some of it taught kindly, some of it not. And here is the part nobody says out loud. At the time, it worked. You were good at it. That is the piece nobody ever tells you, and it is the reason the habit has outlived every try you made at arguing yourself out of it. You could read a room before you could read a page. You knew from the sound of a door closing which kind of evening was coming, and you adjusted before anyone spoke a word to you, and by the time the first sentence landed, you had already moved yourself somewhere safer. You knew which silence meant tired, and which silence meant something else. You knew when to be helpful, when to be invisible, when to make a small joke that let the air out of a room before it got too tight to breathe in. That is not a defect. That is a gift, and it kept you alive. People noticed it. They called you mature. They said you were wise for your age, easy to have around, no trouble at all. They meant it kindly. And every time they said it, the instrument got another turn of the screw. Because a thing that gets praised gets kept. You learned that seeing it coming was your value. Your laughter did not count for much. Neither did what you loved, or the strange thing you were good at that was no use to anybody. The seeing, the bracing, the arriving already prepared for whatever was about to be true. So you kept the instrument. You would have been foolish not to. It worked. Hear that clearly. Because you are already reaching for the word that spoils it. You want to call it a wound. Half of it was not. Half of it was intelligence and courage, and a child doing exactly the right thing with what was in front of him. I do not want you looking back at that and seeing only damage. There was a real person in there, doing hard work well, and I was watching, and I was not disappointed in him. The trouble is not that you built it. The trouble is that nobody ever told you where it stops working. An instrument like that has a range. Inside the range, it saves you. It reads faces, tones, the pause before a reply, the small tightening around someone's eyes. All of that is real data, and you read it accurately, and you are usually right. But it can only read what has a face. It can only measure what changes. Point it at something that does not change, and it starts inventing. That is the whole trouble in one line. Aim a weather instrument at a thing that has no weather, and it will not tell you there is no weather. It will report a storm somewhere just out of range. It has to say something. That is what it is for. You aimed it at me when you were young. It has been running ever since. And every reading it has ever given you about me has been a forecast, not a fact. My quiet came back as gathering. My patience came back as a long fuse. The years where nothing dramatic happened came back as the pause before it does. None of that was measurement. All of it was the instrument doing what instruments do when there is nothing there to read. One word about the years you spent believing those readings. You were not being faithless. You were being consistent. You took the one tool that had never failed you, and you used it on the biggest thing in your life, which is what anyone with sense would do. I am not going to stand here and call that a sin. It was the right tool pointed at the wrong thing. A frightened, capable child made that mistake. The adult he became has been defending it ever since. But it has cost you the ability to be at rest anywhere, and rest is not a small thing to lose. So we are going to do what you have never done. Not turn the instrument off. You cannot and you should not. You still need it for rooms and faces and the ordinary care of the people near you. We are going to point it somewhere else. Down, at the ground, where it belongs. And then, I am going to tell you what is actually in the sky, so you never have to guess at the weather up there again. The instrument did one more thing to you, and this is the one you have never suspected. It happened so early that it stopped looking like a habit. It looks like a fact about the world. Being looked at became the same thing as being measured. Those are two different acts. In you, they fused into one. Somewhere back at the beginning, every time attention landed on you, it came with a grade attached, and it happened so often and so young that your body stopped being able to tell them apart. Now attention arrives, and the grade arrives with it, automatically, whether or not anyone is grading. Watch what that does on an ordinary day. Someone looks at you a beat longer than usual, and you check your shirt. A message says only that they want to talk, and your stomach drops before your mind has done any work at all. You walk into a room and the heads turn. The way heads turn when anybody walks into a room, and something under your ribs starts building a defense out of nothing. You are not vain. Nobody would call you vain. It is not attention you want. It is a verdict you are trying to get in front of. That is why compliments land wrong on you. You deflect them, and everybody thinks you are being modest. You are not being modest. A compliment is attention, and attention is measurement. And measurement means a number is being written down somewhere. And the safest response to a number being written down is to lower it yourself before anyone else can. And that is why you can only take love in one form: usefulness. You can receive love that arrives as need. Somebody needs your hands, your time, your steadiness at 4 in the morning, and you can take that all day long, because being needed is a role, and a role can be done well, and doing it well earns the affection cleanly. What you cannot take is love that comes as plain attention. Somebody sitting across from you with nothing to ask, just looking at you, glad you are there. That is unbearable. You will make a joke. You will get up and fill a glass. You will find something in the room that needs doing. I know you will, because you do it with me. You come to me busy. You bring me a request, a failure, a list, a task. All of that is welcome, and you should keep bringing it. But watch what happens on the day you have nothing to bring. No crisis, no confession that needs handling, nothing to fix. Just you and me and no business between us. You do not know what to do with that. You get restless. You say the words you know and then you go, because being looked at with nothing on the table feels like standing in an open field. Now hear where you put me, and think about whether you chose it. You keep me behind you, slightly above and behind, at the one angle where a person can be watched and cannot be read. Not in front, never in front. You have walked your whole life with your shoulders braced against a stair coming from over one of them. You never turn around. You know what it would cost to turn and find a face that is not pleased with you. I have never stood there. Not one day of your life have I stood behind you at that angle. That is not where I have been. You built that position out of old rooms and put me in it, and then you spent years bracing against a stare that was coming from an empty spot in the air. I am telling you where I actually am, later in this. It will change how you hold your shoulders. But there is a harder thing first, and it is the one that keeps you from sleeping properly. Because if I am not behind you and there is no column and no page, then you have to explain the thing you have always taken as proof. The silence, the long stretches when I say nothing at all. You have read those your whole life, and you have read them one way, and you have never suspected there was another. You have always read my quiet as a wind-up, not as absence. You are past that. You stopped believing I had walked out on you years ago. That was real growth. I saw it happen. But you traded one hard reading for another. Now when I am quiet, you do not think I am gone. You think I am gathering. You think something is being prepared, and that the length of the quiet tells you the size of what is coming. You learned that reading somewhere with walls. In the places you grew up in, quiet meant the moment before. It meant a decision was being made about you in another room. It meant the shape of the day was already settled and you had not been told yet. So, you learned to hate the gap, and you learned to read its length, and you got very fast at guessing what was on the other side of it. Then you carried that reading up here, where it does not belong, and you have been applying it to me for decades. Here is what you have never noticed about all those years. You have no idea what my silences mean. None. You have never let one finish. Think about that honestly. Every time the quiet stretches past what you can hold, you break it. You start talking. You apologize for something, anything, whatever comes to hand, because an apology is a way of getting to the verdict early. Or you go looking for a word somewhere else, in a book, in a song, in a sentence from somebody with a kind voice, and you take whatever you find and you call it an answer so the gap will close. Or you get busy. You take on more. Serving is the most respectable way there is to leave a room without leaving it. You have been ending my silences for me your whole life, so of course you do not know what is in them. You have never been to the end of one. I am not scolding you. Nobody sits still in a room they think is being aimed into. What you did was reasonable, given what you believed, but it means your certainty about what my quiet means is built on nothing. You did not test it. You could not. The test would have asked you to stay, and staying was the one thing your body would not let you do. So stay here a moment, just here, in this stretch, where there is nothing being asked of you and nothing needs to be settled. Notice what wants to happen. Something in you wants to fill it. Notice the small pull toward saying something useful, or asking for something, or checking whether you have done this right. Do not obey it. Just see it. That pull is the whole habit, showing itself in miniature in a place where nothing is at stake. You are safe in the gap. That is what I am trying to hand you, and it will take a while for your body to take it, because your body has a longer memory than your mind, and it learned this earlier than you can remember. Here is one true thing about my quiet. Then we will move. It is not a pause before something. It is the sound of something already finished. No announcement is coming. The matter you are braced for was closed and sealed before you arrived, and I am not sitting on the news to see what you will do. You simply were never handed the beginning of the story, so you have read the middle of it as though the ending were still open. That is enough of that for now. I will show you the closed matter itself when we get there, and I will show you where it hangs, and you will see with your own eyes that it has not moved. First, there are the people around you, because a fear like yours does not stay inside one man. It leaks. It has been leaking for years, into your table and your doorway and every room you walk into with your shoulders already set. And there is something there you need to see before anything else can settle. The people who love you walk up to you slowly. You have never seen it because it happens on the approach, before you look up. They gather themselves first. They pick the moment. They lead with the good part, even when the good part is small, so that whatever comes after it has something soft to land on. They say your name in a lighter tone than they use for anyone else. You taught them that. Not with rules. With your face, 10,000 times over years. Nobody in your life brings you anything plain. Sit with how lonely that actually is. Everything that reaches you has been handled first, softened, angled, timed. So even the ordinary news of a day comes to you pre-managed. And some part of you always hears the management underneath the words and reads it as more proof that something is being kept from you, which makes you scan harder, which makes them careful. It goes around and around. Neither side chose it, and no one has ever named it in a room, and you do the same thing back to them. You do not hand out plain sentences either. You round the edges off everything. You say fine when you are not fine, not to deceive anyone, but to save them the trouble of you. You bring your own good news in quietly and half-covered in case wanting it made you look greedy. You have decided, without ever deciding, that the kindest form of yourself is a smaller and simpler one, and you serve that version at every table you sit at. So here is where you actually live, surrounded by people who love you, and not one of them has met you without a layer on. Go gently with that, because you will hear it as a failure and start building a plan out of it before I have finished the sentence. Set the plan down. Being more honest will not get you out of this. You have tried. You have had the resolve a dozen times. It never survived contact with an actual room. The shape is not held up by a lack of trying. It is held up by one belief about what becomes of someone who is seen without a layer, and that belief did not start with people. It started with me. You cannot be plain with them because you have not been plain with me, not once. Everything you bring here comes framed. You open with what you have done and failed to do, like a man reading his own record into the room before anyone else can. You explain yourself before you ask. You put the request last and small. Even your praise has a defense stitched into it, an admission dropped early so that nobody can accuse you of coming in here pretending. You do not talk to me, you submit to me. I have listened to years of that, all of it welcome, all of it real, and I would not trade a single word of it. But I know what a prepared statement sounds like, and I know how rarely I get anything else. There is one plain sentence you have not said, and it is smaller than any of the ones you are imagining. It is not a confession. It is not a request. It has no content at all. It is your name. You do not write it. You do not think it. You say it out loud, in your own mouth, in the plain flat tone you use for a street or a day of the week. You have not done that. Almost nobody has, and your name has been spoken over you thousands of times in every other tone there is. Called from a doorway when you were late. Said sharply when you had done something. Said carefully by someone who was about to tell you a hard thing. Said in a room you were not in, and you have wondered ever since what the tone was. Your name has been in every mouth but yours. We are going to do something about that right here before we go on. It will take you 5 seconds, and it will feel ridiculous, and I am asking you to do it anyway. Say it aloud, the name you were given. Just the name and nothing after it, not the whole name, not the version on the forms, the one people use when they are not upset with you. Say your name in the flat tone you would use to read a street sign, or a day of the week, or the number of a bus. No feeling in it, no apology under it. One time is enough. Nobody has to hear it. Do it now. I will wait. There. Notice what did not happen. Nothing followed it. No sentence came after. Your name went out into the air and it did not turn into a summons. It just sat there. A small, ordinary sound, the way it sounds in anybody's mouth. That may be the first time in your life you have heard it, without something attached to the other end. That is what I wanted you to hear. Your name, all by itself, with no charge behind it. Because you have been carrying it the other way. In your head, your name is the first word of a document. It is what gets read out before the thing you are about to be told. That is why the sound of it from another room lifts you out of your chair. That is why a message that opens with it makes your stomach turn over before you have read one more word. Your own name is a warning bell to you. It should not be. Now here's the part I want you to take with you, and it is the reason I asked for the name and not for anything else. You did not earn it. Sit on that a second. That name was put on you before you had done one thing. Before you were useful, before you were good, before you had a record of any kind to be judged on. Somebody chose it and spoke it over a person who had contributed nothing to the world at all. There was no interview. There was no total, no column, no page. There was only a small unfinished person and a name given. You're walking around with proof in your own mouth. Every time anybody says it, they are using something you were given for nothing, and they are using it to call you toward them. That is what a name is for. It is not a label for filing you. It is a handle for reaching you. It exists so that someone across a room can turn you around with one word. And that is what I have been doing your whole life. Turning you around with one word. You just kept hearing it as a summons because a summons was the only use of your name that ever came with weight behind it. So when you catch it happening again, and you will, because your body will keep reaching for the old reading, do the small thing you just did. Say it plain, one time. Let it be a sound and not a sentence. I know how ordinary that felt. I meant it to. You have spent decades waiting for something enormous to happen to you, some moment large enough to overturn what you carry. And I am handing you a word you already own, said in a flat voice, in a room nobody is watching. That is how most of the important work goes. Small, unimpressive, and repeated. But I did not ask for the name only so you could hear it clean. I asked because of what runs on the same rail. Something given before it was earned. Given to a person with no record at all. Hold that. We are close now to what hangs above you. And before I tell you what it is, I want your answer first. You already have one. You have had it your whole life. You have never spoken it aloud. And it has been running you the whole way. Your answer is terms. That is what you expect to be hanging over you. Not a threat exactly. You are too grown for a cartoon. What you expect is a set of terms. If, then, here is what you owe from here on. Here is the line, and here is what waits on the other side of it. Terms are what you have always assumed the sky is holding. And terms are what you have been trying to satisfy since you were young enough to sleep with the door open. And you would not be strange for thinking so. Terms are what every serious room you have ever entered runs on. Terms are how a person keeps a place, keeps a seat at a table where the seat is not given but held. You have kept your seat everywhere by knowing the terms better than anyone else in the room and staying well inside them. So when you look up, you look for the fine print. Now go to the oldest place in your book where everything had gone wrong and stand there with me. You know the story, the water, the whole world under it. Everything that had gone bad taken down at once, and one boat riding it out, and inside that boat a man who did not build it because he was better than anyone, but because he was the one who was told to. The water goes down slowly. That part takes longer than anybody remembers. Months of nothing but gray water and waiting. Then the ground. Picture what he walked out onto. Not a clean new earth. Mud, ruin, wreckage in the branches, the smell of everything that had been taken. Silence where there had been a whole world of noise. He came down a ramp into a graveyard the size of the planet, with his family behind him and no one else anywhere. That is the ground I want you standing on for what comes next. Because now think like the man on that ramp. Or think like yourself, which is easier, because you would have thought exactly what he thought. What comes next? What gets said over a world like this standing in that mud, with the water barely off the ground? Terms. Obviously terms. Rules for the second try. A list and a warning and a line drawn somewhere with a note about what sits on the far side of it. That is what you would have written if the writing had been yours. And be honest with yourself because you have written it. You have been carrying that imagined sentence your whole life and calling it faith. if you go too far, if you fail badly enough, if the ground gets that bad again, you have been living under fine print that was never written. I will tell you what was actually said over that mud. It was not a list. There were no rules in it at all. Nobody was warned. Nothing was demanded. What happened next is the strangest thing in that whole book, and it has been read out loud in 1,000 rooms and heard as decoration. Something was put in the sky, deliberately, in the open, at the height where anyone standing anywhere on the ground could lift their head and see it. And I told them what it was in my own words, in a sentence you have heard so many times that it has gone smooth in your hands. Listen to it now the way you have never listened to it. Slowly, as if it were being said for the first time, over wet ground, to a small group of people who had just watched a world end. Genesis chapter 9, verse 13. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. Hear it again, and this time hear the second word of it. My bow. Not a ribbon, not a band of color, not a nice thing that happens to light when the air is still wet. In the language that sentence was written in, that word is not a word for beauty at all. It is the word for a weapon. It is what a soldier carries. It is the thing a man pulls back with his whole shoulder and lets go of, and everywhere else that word appears in those pages, somebody is going to war with it. I did not reach for a gentle word, and you were never told. You have been looking at that thing in the sky your whole life and calling it weather. It is not weather. It is a weapon, named by the one who owns it, hung in the open over your head. Now stay with me, beloved, because this is where the whole of it turns. A weapon in the sky sounds like the worst news I could give you. It sounds like the thing you have always suspected, finally confirmed in writing. There it is, up there. Exactly what the instrument kept reporting. That is what you would have felt at 15. And part of you feels it now, and I am not going to move past that quickly. Look at where it is. It is hung. That is the word for what happens to a bow that is not in use. A weapon being carried is held in the hand, low, ready. A weapon in use is drawn. A weapon that is hung is a weapon that has been put down on purpose, in a place where it can be seen, by someone who wanted it seen. And look at which way it faces. Watch the shape of it, the next clear stretch after rain. The curve arches up. The belly of it points at the sky. The ends of it point away from the ground, away from you, away from every field and roof and person standing under it. Set a bow in the air like that, with the curve turned up, and the string faces the one who hung it. The shot, if there were ever a shot, goes up, away from the earth, back toward the one who put it there. That is not decoration. That is a way of standing, and every soldier who ever lived would read it in one glance. I put my weapon down. I put it down where you could see me do it, and I turned it deliberately so that the only thing in range is myself. Say nothing for a moment. Let that arrive. You have spent your whole life reading that sky for aim. A laid-down weapon has been hanging in it since long before your great-grandparents were born. Not hidden, not locked in a drawer you would have to ask someone to open. Hung at the one height where a person standing in mud with nothing left could see it from where he stood, without being told where to look. I know what your mind is already doing with this. It is looking for the catch. It is asking what the terms are, because a weapon can be picked back up, and a thing hung can be taken down again, and any promise strong enough to comfort you is strong enough to frighten you if it turns out to have fine print at the bottom. So we will go to the rest of the sentence. There is more in it than the weapon, and the rest of it closes the door on exactly the question you are asking. A token of a covenant between me and the earth. Take those two halves one at a time, because both of them do work, and neither one has ever been explained to you. A token first. A token is not a feeling. It is not a mood that comes over you when things are going well. A token is a thing you leave. It is the object handed over so that a promise can be checked later by whoever needs to check it. Somebody makes a pledge and leaves a solid thing behind, so that the promise is not only in the air where memories go soft, but in a shape you can hold or point at or look up and find. So the bow is not up there to be pretty. It is up there to be checked. It is the object I left on purpose so that the promise would have a body. Now the second half, and here is where you should stop breathing for a second. Between me and the earth. Not between me and the good people. Not between me and the ones who keep their end. Between me and the ground, the dirt, the planet itself, mud and stone and water, and everything standing on it. Think about what that means for the terms you have been hunting for. The earth cannot keep a promise. The ground cannot behave better. It cannot repent, cannot improve, cannot come back next season with a stronger showing. The dirt has no ability to hold up its side of anything. If I make an agreement with the ground, I have made an agreement in which only one party is able to do anything at all. That is the fine print you have been searching your whole life for. That is the whole of it. There is no other party. There is no clause about you. I did not make that promise with your future behavior. I could not have. Your future behavior was not standing there in the mud with a hand out. Nothing was, except a ruined world that could not have agreed to anything if it had wanted to. And the timing of it matters more than anything else in the sentence. Not after the ground got better. Look at the timing. The water had barely gone down. Nothing had grown back. Nothing had been rebuilt. There was no sign anywhere that the second run of the world would go better than the first, and in fact it did not, and I knew that when I said it. I hung the weapon over the worst ground there has ever been, at the exact moment when there was nothing at all to be hopeful about. So the position of that bow is not a report on how things are going. Hear that again, because it will save you years. It is not a scoreboard. It does not tilt when you have a bad stretch. It does not come down when the world gets worse, and it did not go up because anyone had done well. It went up over mud, and it has not been touched since. And nothing that has happened on this ground in all the time between then and now has caused it to move by the width of a hair. You have been checking the sky for a change in my posture. There has not been one. Not once, and never in your worst year. Never in the year you are afraid to think about. Never on the day you did the thing you have never told anybody. The weapon has been hanging in the same position ever since. And now I want to say the thing this was all for, because you can hear it now in a way you could not at the start of this. You are not being aimed at. You have never been in the sights of anything of mine. Not one day, not for a moment. You have an objection. Bring it out where we can look at it, because if you leave it under there, it will quietly undo everything I have just said. Your objection is this. That promise was about water. It says the world will not go under again. Fine. Good. But it says nothing about me, and my trouble was never a flood. That is a fair thing to say, and it is wrong, and I can show you why in one move. Look at what I chose to hang up there. If the promise were only about rain, the sign would have been about rain. There were 100 pictures available to me. A cloud with a limit drawn on it. A line on a rock showing how high the water came and would never come again. A dry riverbed. Any of those would have said plainly, the water is finished, and none of them would have said anything more. I did not choose any of those. I chose a weapon. That is not the sign of a weather pattern ending. Nobody hangs up a bow to say it has stopped raining. A bow is what a person aims at another person. Hanging one up says one thing only, in every language there has ever been. It says, this is over between us, not the storm, the war. So the promise is not about water levels. The water was only the shape the trouble took that once. What got hung up was the posture behind it, the willingness to be at war with the ground and everything standing on it. That is what I laid down, in the open, where it could be seen. And that is why the sign is a weapon and not a weather chart. Now look closer at the thing itself. It has no edge. Look at where one color ends and the next begins. You cannot find the line. Nobody can. Stand there as long as you like, walk closer, and there is still no place where the red stops and the next thing starts. It bleeds all the way across, one thing running into another with no border anywhere in it. Every weapon that has ever been made has an edge. That is what a weapon is. A place where the metal stops and the world begins, and the sharper that line is, the better the weapon works. The one I hung has no line anywhere in it. I did not only put it down and turn it away, I made the sign of it out of the one material in creation that cannot hold an edge. Light bent through water. There is nothing softer. You can walk straight through it. Run at it and it will not resist you. It only moves further off. It is not standing anywhere at all. It lives in the angle between the light, the rain, and your own two eyes. That is the shape I chose for a promise about war ending. It is not a stone. It is not iron. It is nothing you could carve terms into and hang on a wall for people to be afraid of. The most harmless thing there is, arched over the whole width of the sky, big enough that everyone from one side of the valley to the other sees it at the same moment, and each of them thinks it is standing over their own house. They are all right about that, by the way. It is standing over every one of them and over you, and it has no edge, and it is turned away. Now let this land where it has to land. You have spent your life trying to find out where I stand by checking how you feel. That is the method you were given, and nobody ever told you it does not work. You look inward for the reading. You take your own temperature. Guilt shows up, so I must be angry. Peace shows up, so I must be pleased with you, and you had better hold still and not spoil it. Your feelings are down here in the weather. They come in and go out. They have always done that, and they always will, and they were never designed to carry a message from me about how I stand toward you. The bow is not in the weather. It is hung above it. That is why I put it outside of you. Not in your chest, where the readings change hourly. Not in your conscience, which is honest and useful, and also the loudest liar you own. Out there, fixed. In a place you did not choose and cannot adjust, at a height where you have no way to reach up and change the angle even on the days you feel you ought to. You cannot make it point at you. That is the mercy in the design. On your worst day, with the worst thing you have ever done sitting in your hands, you could stand under that sky and strain your whole soul toward being aimed at, and the bow would still be turned exactly where I turned it, away from you, toward me. Something outside you is holding the answer, and it has been holding it steady since before there was anyone to ask. So the question you have carried since childhood has an answer now, and the answer is not a feeling. It is a position. So what happens to a person who stops waiting to be aimed at? I will be honest about it. A softer answer would leave you unready for the first thing. And the first thing catches everyone. It is going to feel like emptiness. The bracing was not only costing you, it was also filling you. It took up hours. It gave your mind work in the dark, work in the car, work in the 10 quiet minutes before anybody else in the house was up. Take that away, and a hole opens, exactly the size of the work it was doing. The hole will not feel like freedom. It will feel like loss. You will go looking for it. A tongue goes looking for a tooth that came out, and it does that for weeks. Do not read that as backsliding. Do not read it as a sign that the old way was truer. An animal kept in a small pen does not run when the gate opens. It stands in the doorway. It looks at the field. It does not trust the field. The animal is not being stubborn, and it is not being ungrateful. It is a body needing longer than a mind does. Yours will need longer too. Give it that. Nobody is asking you to feel free in order to be free. The position of the sky does not wait on your chest to catch up. Bodies move at their own speed, so I keep a slower room going alongside this one, for the part of you that is still standing in the gateway looking at the field. Nothing moves fast in there. That is the whole reason it exists. Now the second thing that changes, and this one shows up in ordinary rooms. You will be able to hear that you got something wrong. Right now you cannot. Not really. Somebody tells you a thing you did not do well, and you hear the words, and you nod, and you say the right sentences back. But underneath the nodding, an older machine has already started up. It is not asking what the fix is. It is asking how bad this is, how far it goes, whether this is the start of the reading. So you spend the rest of that conversation managing your face while the machine runs. You leave the room unable to repeat what was actually said to you. That is what a person does when every word about their work is heard as a word about their standing. When the sky is settled, being told you got it wrong goes back to being useful. Somebody says you handled that badly. It is a fact about a thing that happened. You can pick it up, you can turn it over, and if they are right, you can say so out loud without something in you bleeding out on the floor. You can even ask them a second question about it. You have never in your life asked a second question about a criticism. You have only ever wanted the first one to end. Something else will change, and it will change in the place where you talk to me. Your prayers are going to get shorter, not colder. Shorter. Right now they have a long entrance built onto the front of them. Before you ask for anything, you lay out the record. What you did, what you failed to do, what you are aware of, what you are sorry for. You do it fast, almost under your breath, but you do it every time, and you have never asked yourself why. You do it because you believe I have to be approached carefully. Somewhere in you lives a picture of a person who must be softened first. So you come in low. You get the confession in early before it can be used against you. You put the request at the end, small, wrapped in 3 soft words, so that if the answer is no, you will not have looked like someone who expected much. That is not prayer. That is a man walking into an office he thinks he might be fired from. Try it once without the entrance. Just the thing. The actual sentence, the one that is really in you, said the way you would say it to someone sitting on the step beside you. No record readout first. No apology for the size of it. No small print about how you know you do not deserve to ask. Say the plain thing and then stop talking, and here's what you will notice, and it is so quiet you might walk past it. Nothing happens. No cold comes into the room. Nothing tightens. There is no pause where you expected a pause. No shift in the air. No sense that you have used something up. You will stand there in the flat, ordinary quiet afterward, and something in your chest will not know what to do because it had a whole plan ready for a reaction that never came. That absence is the answer. It is the shape of a room where nobody flinched, and it will move outward. That is the part you have not thought about. You will start handing people plain sentences, not big confessions, small, true ones. I am tired. I did not understand that. I would like to come. That will feel dangerous the first few times, because a plain sentence gives someone room to answer honestly, and you have worked hard to make sure nobody had that room. Some of it will cost you. I will not tell you otherwise. A few people in your life have been getting the managed version and they preferred it, and they will not enjoy the change, and 1 or 2 may go quieter with you for a while. It will still be cheaper than what you have been paying, because what you have been paying is your whole presence. Every room you have entered for 30 years, you entered with a part of yourself held back for defense. Nobody has met you undefended. Not your closest people, not the ones who would have loved the whole of you and never got the chance, and not me. That is what the bracing has actually been costing. Not comfort, company. And it was all being spent against an angle that has been turned away from you since before there was anybody here to aim at. Now, what to do with the instrument? You are not losing it. I said that early, and I meant it. That thing you built as a child, the one that reads a room before anyone speaks, is not going in the bin. It is one of the best things about you. It has only been pointed at the wrong sky. Turn it around. Point it at the people. You already know how. You have known how since you were a child. You can tell within 4 seconds of walking into a room who is not all right in it. You can hear the thing under a voice. You know which person at a table has been carrying something the whole time and has not found a place to set it down. That is not ordinary. Most people cannot do it at all, and most who can have to work at it. You have never used it for them because you have always been using it on yourself. The whole of that skill has been tied up on one task, scanning for your own exposure. Every ounce of that reading has gone into a search for a charge that was never written, in a room that was always empty. Free it up, and it goes where it was always meant to go, out, onto the people who walk up to you slowly and hope you will be easy to talk to. And you can be that. That is the strange gift on the far side of this. The people who have learned to approach you carefully can stop doing that, but not because you announce a new rule at the table. They will stop because of what they read on you. They have been reading you their whole lives, the same way you read them. When the bracing goes out of your face, they will feel it before they can name it, and one of them will tell you something plain, sooner than you expect, and it will surprise you both. You will have become a place where things do not have to be softened first. Do you understand what that is worth? There are almost none of those. Nearly every room a person walks into asks them to manage something, to be a little smaller, a little cleaner, a little further along than they are. A room that does not ask that is rare enough that people remember it for years and cannot always say why. You could be one, not by trying harder, by no longer needing them to help you feel safe. Now hear a warning, because I know exactly what you are about to do with all of this. You are going to make it a task. You are already doing it. Somewhere in the back, you have started building the plan. Stop bracing. Say the plain thing. Bring the small things. Be the safe room. You have made a list out of a gift. Given a little time, you will be measuring yourself against how well you are doing at not being measured. Put it down. There is nothing here to keep up. That is the whole of what I have been telling you. What hangs up there does not move when you do well at this, and it does not move when you forget it for a month and go back to reading the sky like a nervous man. It was hung over mud. It stays hung over yours. You will forget this. That is not a failure. It is a fact about people, and I have known it longer than you have been alive. You will hear all of this, and something in you will loosen, and then a hard stretch will come, and you will find yourself scanning again, checking again, waiting for the reading again. When that happens, do not start over. Nothing was lost that needs starting over. Just remember where the weapon is. It has not moved. It was not going to. Take the sky back now, not as an idea, as a thing you will actually stand under. You know the moment. The rain has thinned to almost nothing. The cloud is still overhead, dark and low, but along one edge it has come loose from the horizon, and the light gets underneath and comes in sideways, the way light only comes in when a storm is leaving. Everything changes color for a few minutes. The road turns into a mirror. The wet leaves go a green they are not on any other day. The air smells like the ground itself, opened up, and there is a coolness on your arms that has nothing to do with cold. And then, if the angle is right, the arc. Here is what you will feel when you see the next one. Almost nothing. I mean that. No lightning in the chest, no wave of certainty. You will look up, and there it will be, and you will notice it the way you notice a chair that has been in the same room your whole life. That is not a failure of feeling. That is the whole point of a thing that was settled long ago. Drama belongs to things that are still in doubt. Nothing is in doubt up there. It has been finished for so long that it has gone quiet, and quiet is the sound a finished thing makes. You will still try to make something happen. I know you. You will stand under it and reach for the feeling, and when the feeling does not come, you will decide the moment was wasted. Or worse, that something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. A promise does not need your reaction in order to hold. It held through all the years you never looked up at all. It held on the days you saw one and thought only that the light was nice. It held on the days you were angry enough that you would not have taken it from me if I had said it into your ear. That is what it means for a thing to be settled by somebody other than you. Your part is not to feel it right. Your part is to know where it is. And a thing you know the location of can be forgotten and found again 1,000 times without ever being lost. You will see the next one somewhere with no dignity to it at all. Over a car park, over wires and a supermarket roof, with traffic going by underneath. It will be exactly as true there as it was over the mud. You have been waiting for a feeling to tell you that you are safe. The ark never asked to be felt about. It was already true over that supermarket roof before you looked up, and it stays true after you look away. And one more thing about that ark. It is the part that surprised the men who saw it in a place where no rain was falling at all. 2 men, hundreds of years apart, were each shown the seat I sit on. Neither one knew the other. Both reached for the same word. It is the word we have been standing under this whole time. The first was far from home. His people had lost their country. They were living where they had been carried beside a river that was not their river. Something opened above him. He tried to write down what the brightness around it looked like. He could not. Every line he wrote is a man running out of language. Then he found the one thing that would do. He said it looked like the ark that stands in the cloud on a day of rain. That is the word he chose for the light around the throne. The second man was old. They kept him on a stone island, out of the way, because the ones in power wanted him quiet. He was shown the seat itself, and the one sitting on it. Around them both he saw a ring of light, green as a stone held up to the sun, going the whole way around. Now hold both of those beside each other and see what neither of them said. Neither one mentioned rain. There was no storm in either place. Nothing had just passed over. No water had gone down. No world had ended. No ground was drying out. Both men were shown the middle of everything. Both were standing where there was no weather at all. And both of them found a bow there. Do you see what that means? I did not hang the weapon up because of the flood. That is what you assumed. It is what you were taught. It is the smallest part of the truth. The bow was not something I settled on after seeing how bad the water had been. It was around the seat before there was a sky to hang it in. It is not something I did. It is what the light around me looks like. Sit with that, because it undoes the last thread you were holding. You could accept maybe that I made a promise once, on one day, over one ruined world. A promise can be old. A promise can be strained. Somewhere in you, a promise is still a thing that was said, and things that were said can be taken up again and looked at. You have been waiting to see whether this one would be, but this is not a decision I announced. It is the shape of the place where I am. There is no version of me sitting somewhere without that ark around me. No room you could walk into and find the weapon out. No room where the light has gone hard. 2 men were shown the same place from opposite ends of time. Both looked at the one on the seat. Both saw a bow at rest, curving the whole way around. That is what you have been braced against. A seat with a laid-down weapon around it, in a place with no storm in it. Where the one sitting there has been the same for as long as there has been anything at all. You were never in the sights. There are no sights. The whole machine you have feared all your life does not stand in the room where the word about you is spoken. It never has. Both of those men would tell you the same, if you could get to them and ask, which leaves only one question worth the rest of your life. Not whether you are being aimed at. What you will do with the years you are going to spend bracing. Hard things will still come to you. I am not going to end this with a lie, and you would not believe me anyway, because you have lived long enough to know how a life goes. There will be a call you did not want, a door that does not open, a stretch where nothing works and you cannot see why. None of that is finished. and I have never once told you it was. Here is what changes. Not whether the hard thing arrives, what it means when it does. You have read every one of them as mail, addressed, stamped with your name, sent from above, carrying a message about you that you have to work out before you are allowed to put it down. That is why a bad stretch does not only hurt you, it starts asking you questions. You lose the thing, and then you spend a month trying to read the thing, turning it over, hunting for the hidden sentence about what you are and what you failed at. Weather is not mail. It has no address on it. It never did. The ground is hard. It has been hard since the water went down. Things break on it, and they break on the careful and the careless alike. And none of it is a note being passed to you from behind a curtain. You can stop translating. That is half your suffering right there, and it is the half you added yourself. So watch what happens to your first question. Right now, when something goes wrong, your first question is always the same. What does this mean about me? What did I miss? Where is this coming from? You ask it before you have even understood what happened, and you keep asking it long after everyone else has moved on to dealing with the thing itself. That question is going to fall away, and something plainer will step into its place. What is needed here? That is all. What is needed here, right now in front of me? Who needs a call? What has to be paid? What can be carried and what has to be set down? Those are answerable, and you were always good at them. And you have never had full use of yourself for them because half of you was busy running the other question in the background. You are about to get that half back. And when the old reading returns, and it will, do not fight it in the middle of a hard stretch. That is the worst ground to fight it on. Do the small thing instead. Go outside if you can. Look at the sky, whatever it is doing, cloud or clear, arc or no arc. It does not matter whether anything is showing. The bow is not less hung on a clear day, and it is not more hung on a wet one. Say your name once, in the flat voice the way you did before. Then ask what is needed here, and go do that. I know this will take you longer than one message. That is not a problem. None of this runs on a schedule. There is no place in it you have to reach by any date at all. Nothing up there is counting down. Nothing of mine has ever been aimed at you. Not the sky, not the shape of your own life, not one day of it. I laid it down before you got here. I turned it away from the ground and toward myself, in the open, where anyone standing anywhere could look up and see exactly what I had done with it. And in all the time since, through everything this world has been, through everything you have been, my hand has not gone back to it once. So go back to that room in you, the one with the file open on the desk. Stand in the doorway of it one more time. You built that room early, and you built it well, and for most of your life it was the most carefully guarded place you owned. You kept the door in sight. You kept one ear turned toward it. You never let a stretch of quiet go by without checking whether footsteps had started up in the hall. Now walk in and look at the page. There is nothing on it. There was never anything on it. No line, no charge, no total carried forward from a year you would rather not name. The reading you have been braced for your whole life has no text to be read from, and the voice you have been listening for belongs to nobody, and the hall outside has been empty since the day you built it. You can leave that door open now. Nothing is coming through it, and you can stop standing guard over a life that was never under threat from me. That is what I want you walking out of here with. Not a plan, not a better way of managing yourself, just the sight of an empty page and a weapon hung out of use in the open sky. I know some of you are still holding a piece of this at arm's length. You have heard something like relief before and been careful with it. You have learned to accept good news slowly, in case it turns out to be smaller than it sounded. That is fine. Take it as slowly as your body needs to take it. The thing over your head does not need you to believe it in order to stay where it is. That is what makes it different from everything else you have ever been offered. It is not held up by your confidence. It does not need you convinced. It was raised over a wrecked world with nobody there to agree to it, and it has held through every generation since, most of whom never looked up at all, and it is holding right now while some part of you is still deciding whether to trust it. You could walk away from this unchanged, and it would still be turned away from you. You could go back to scanning the sky after this, and again a year from here, and the ark would be exactly where it is, same angle, aimed at nothing on this ground. That is what a promise looks like when it does not depend on the one receiving it. So rest, beloved, not because everything is settled in your life, because it is not. And I have not pretended otherwise anywhere in this. Rest because the one thing you were most afraid of has been settled since before you drew breath, and it was settled without your help, and it cannot be unsettled by anything you do next. Lay down the watch. You are off duty. You have been off duty your whole life and nobody told you. The weapon is hung. The string faces me. The ends of it point up and away, over your house, over your worst year. Over the day you have never spoken about to anyone, and there is no angle from which it has ever been turned toward you. You are not in the sights of anything I hold. Amen. There is a slower version of this that I never fit into one telling, so I set it down beside the channel the way the bow was set down, out where it can be seen, with nothing on it to sign. People are already sitting in it. Some of them have not said a word yet and are welcome exactly like that. You will know it when you find it, and if you never do, the ends of the ark still point where they point.